السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, in the fiqh of worship, we'll discuss a specific matter with regards to the salah, the places where it's not permissible for us to pray, the places where it's not permissible, or between the makruh and the forbiddens, whether it's makruh or haram to pray in specific places. As we know that there are certain times where it's not supposed to, or it's forbidden, or it's makruh for a person to make salah, but this is regarding to the places, some physical places where it's not permissible to perform the salah in these particular places. One of these places is al-maqbara, or the graveyard, where the graves are. And this is where the salah is not valid. And this is, we're not going into the differences of opinions in these matters. We're just going through what the ulama they mentioned. And praying in the grave. And one of the things that we can refer to in this subject is the Shaykh Ibrahim rahimahullah, and I would quote from him from the majmu' of the fatawa, or the fatawa of the Shaykh, when he mentioned about the places where it's not permissible to pray. He said the original ruling is جُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. The earth has been made for me a place of salah, a place of, as a masjid, making place of salah, and also a place of purification. Except these places where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned something regarding to them. The first one is al-maqbara, or the graveyard, or where their graves are. And this is because of the Prophet ﷺ. There's a hadith reported by Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah. He says, Al-ardu kulluha masjid illa al-maqbaratu wal-hammam. The earth, all of it is masjid except al-maqbara, the graveyard, and al-hammam, which is the place of basically people taking showers, taking their clothes off to take showers. There used to be public bathrooms, and still it's valid for the bathrooms or the places of taking showers and at home and things like this. So these two places are mentioned in this hadith. And also the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and there are so many of them. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَى اتَّخَذُوا قُبُورَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ مَسَاجِدَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses the Jews and the Christians. They took the graves of their prophets as masajid, and in some narrations was salihihim, and the righteous people, they took their graves as places of worship. And because of the graveyard is a wasila, or a mean for people to worship these graves, or the people buried in these graves. Also, it's a mean of imitating or following the ways of those who worship the graves. So whether it's a mean for people to worship the graves, or if someone worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purely in the graves, but it's a way of imitating them. And this can lead again also to worshipping the graves. And the only exception in this is Salatul Janazah. Salat al-Janazah. Salat al-Janazah can be prayed in the graveyard. Salatul Janazah does not have any ruku' or any sujood. And the hadith of the woman that used to clean the masjid, as it's reported by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, when she died at night time, and they disliked to inform the Prophet ﷺ to wake him up or to disturb the Prophet ﷺ. And in the morning, the Prophet ﷺ asked about her, and they said that she died. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Dulluni ala qabriha. Show me her grave. Take me to her grave. So the Prophet ﷺ went to the Baqiyah, to the graveyard, and they showed him the grave, and the Prophet ﷺ made the Salatul Janazah for this woman. So it's permissible to pray Salatul Janazah by the graveyard, and of course facing the Qibla. And if the grave or the body of the deceased can be exactly as it is when they would pray the Janazah outside, if the person is not buried yet, while facing the Qibla, this is perfect. If it's not, then facing the Qibla. facing the Qibla. So again, so this is the first thing where the salah is forbidden, where there are graves, and that's why the masajid that is built on the graves, this is something that is not permissible for the Muslim to pray in, because of the hadith that we just heard, as the Prophet والسلام, إني أنهاكم عن ذلك, as the hadith we just mentioned. ألا فلا تتخذوا القبور مساجد إني أنهاكم عن ذلك, which is another narration, the hadith of Jundub رضي الله عنه in Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet والسلام, he said, ألا وإن من كان قبلكم كانوا يتخذون قبور أنبيائهم وصالحيهم مساجد ألا فلا تتخذوا القبور مساجد إني أنهاكم عن ذلك. That indeed those who were before you, they used to take the graves of their prophets and the righteous ones as masajid, as places of worship. So do not take the places of worship as masajid, because I forbade you from this. So even if a person doesn't find any masjid except a masjid that has a grave in it, he should not pray in it, even if he has to pray alone, because of the warnings from the Prophet ﷺ and forbidding it clearly with the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. The second one, as mentioned in the hadith also mentioned earlier, is al-hammam. And al-hammam, what constitutes the hammam is the place where they used to have public showers, or people would bathe and mainly taking their clothes off, or they don't take their clothes off. So whether it's public, whether it's private in one's home, this is not a place, of course, to make salah in. And this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, الْأَرْضُ كُلُّهَا مَسْجِدٌ إِلَّا الْمَقْبَرَةِ وَالْحَمَّامِ. All the earth is a masjid except al-maqbara, the grave, and al-hammam, which is the place of al-mughtasal, or the place where people would take a shower. And the illah, or the reason why this is the case, because of the awarat, or the private parts, is exposed, and it would have some other najasat. And it's not the proper place, of course, to make salah and to exalt the salah and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third one is, they call it al-hush. And al-hush is the place where a person relieves himself by urinating or defecating. And this is, of course, is even more of a stressed matter, more than the hammam, more than the place of taking a shower, for example, because this would have najasat, impurities, and it's the places where the shayateen, they like these places. So this is a place that is khabith or impure, and a person should make it as brief as he can in these places, and to make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before entering. And the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forbidden in these places till a person leaves. So this is a third place. Number 4 is, they call it a'tanul ibil. The ibil is the camels, and the a'tan is basically the place where the camels, they stationed, or they place, like the barn for the animals. I'm not sure what they call for the barn of the camels. It's correct to call it barn. So this is where the places where they station their place there, they spend the night in, and things like this. Whether they are waiting for water to drink, or whether they are done with it, they're always stationed in a place. And this is the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تصلوا في أعطان الإبل. Do not pray in the places where the camels are stationed, or they're placed there. Even though we have to know, we mentioned this before, that the urine and the droppings of the camels is pure. Right, so their urine and the droppings is pure, meaning if it comes on one's clothing, for example, it's okay. A person can pray as far as the ruling is concerned. Of course, this is not something necessarily a person would want to do, but if it comes, it's pure. It's ruling that it's tahir. But as the ulama, they mentioned that al-illa, or the reason why it's forbidden, it's because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated this. And how whether it's because of the places of, some of the ulama, they said it's because it's from the place of the shayateen, for example, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Or some said that the camels, they can cause harm to the one that is next to it. And a person, if he makes salah, for example, they can cause harm to him. But Allah knows best. Or because of the shayateen, they're created from shayateen, as some said, or the shayateen are present in these places. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But again, as the Shaykh rahimahullah, Shaykh Ibrahim Zidan rahimahullah, he said, which is the statement that we all should follow in these matters, that knowing the wisdom behind what's forbidden is one thing, but our actions is to submit ourselves to what the text came with. So when he said, وَالْوَاجِبُ فِي النُّصُوصِ الشَّرْعِيَّةِ التَّسْلِيمِ, that what's wajib, what's mandatory in these religious texts is at-taslim, to submit ourselves to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It does not befit a believing man or a believing woman if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam decree a matter, that they would have a choice from their affairs. No choice once the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is clear, and also the command from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the one that does not speak from his desire, speak from revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is with regards to the places where the camels are. The fourth point that the Sheikh also mentioned is the place that is maghsoob, the place that is taken without the right to be taken, something that a person took a land without the right for him to do so, took it from someone by force, or without the right to do that, whether it's by force or without the person knowing. So this is where some of the ulama, they said that the salah is not permissible, that the salah is not valid. The salah is not valid, right? So there's some said that the salah is valid, but there's sin, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ in the previous hadith, he said, جُعِلَتْ لِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا. The earth has been made a masjid for me. And this is where the Shaykh, he takes that opinion that the salah is valid, but there's sin. But there is a sin as a result of making the salah in that place. But again, of course, it's best for a person to always stay away from the differences of opinions. And this is if people would get to know that the place, of course, has been taken without the right to do so. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَإِنَّ دِمَاءَكُمْ وَأَمْوَالَكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ حَرَامٌ كَحُرْمَةِ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا فِي شَهْرِكُمْ هَذَا فِي بَلَدِكُمْ هَذَا إِلَى يَوْمِ تَلْقَوْنَ رَبَّكُمْ. That your blood and your wealth are haram for one another, as the Prophet ﷺ said in the farewell pilgrimage. But the majority of the ulama that the salah is valid, right? Because it's a pure place, and what's forbidden is that it's been, taken against the right of the owner, that it doesn't invalidate the salah. But there's a sin if a person knows about this. Also, one of the places where the ulama, they mentioned with regards to the church, to the synagogues, to the places of worship of other people. And the majority of the ulama, that they are of opinion that these places, salah in it is disliked, makruh, and it's best to be avoided. And if there is images or idols or things like this, then this is another issue. Because these are places of kufr, these are places of disbelief, these are not places of salah. This is just something that is mentioned as a permissibility matter if a person has to make salah, but it does not make it a place of virtue or something of that nature. It's a place of disbelief. But Umar radiallahu anhu, as we know, that he said, إِنَّ لَنَدْخُلُ كَنَائِسَكُمْ مِنْ أَجْلِ التَّمَاثِيلِ الَّتِي فِيهَا الصُّوَرِ. He said, we do not enter your churches because of the images that you have, the statues and the images. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu used to pray in the bay'ah, which is the places of like temples, except a place that has statues in it. And this is bay'ah, as it's mentioned also in the Quran. And al-bay'ah is not just a place other than the churches. This is, they call it ma'bad al-Nasara, the places or the temples of the Christians, or whatever, any temples basically, or places of worship other than the masajid. So this is, even though there is mentioned here, some of the Sahaba they did, but the karaha here, is disliked. And some even said that it's not permissible if there is statues. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لَتَدْخُلْ مَلَائِكَةُ بَيْتًا فِيهِ كَلْبٌ وَلَا صُورَةٌ. That the angels do not enter a place where there's a dog or a picture. And this is something also to be aware of, places where houses, for example, people, they have dogs in it, which is not permissible, or they have statues, and a person should not pray in these places. and you should find a place where there's no statues in. Unless a person doesn't find any place whatsoever, then the makruh becomes not makruh if a person is in need. So makruh or the karaha or the disliked ruling is become of a less effect if a person is in dire need. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ forbade that. So, and again, some of the ulama, they give the ruling that it's haram to pray in the church, especially, I mean, the ones that has pictures in it. And Shaykh Ibrahim Zidan, rahimahullah, when he was asked about this, whether it has pictures or images or not, and can a person says that these are buyutullah? Can someone say that these places, churches and synagogues and so on, are they the houses of Allah, meaning houses of worship? And he said, laysat buyutullah. These are not the houses of Allah. This is not places of worship. وإنما بيوت الله المساجد. The houses of Allah are the masajid. بل هي بيوت يكفر فيها بالله. These are places where the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it. And even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned in these places, right? But there are people, of course, that are not worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purely. And the ulama, they have differences of opinions in it. In Imam Ahmad, it's to be forbidden, period. And the rest, as we talked about, the issue of being makruh also. But anyway, so this is just in brief of some of the things that are mentioned, and it shows the importance of the salah, and that the person should protect one's salah from invalidating it. So we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. بارك الله فيكم وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.